The Battle for the Rocks, 1973. The seeds of this struggle were laid a decade earlier.
Keep the rocks for the people!
As Sydney rode the post-war boom of the 1960s and investment capital poured in, the call for the city to be modernised gathered momentum. The AMP building was the first of the high-rise office blocks, which, as one observer put it, deflowered the virgin purity of the skyline. By then, the Opera House, which would eventually compete with the Bridge as Sydney's favourite icon, was well underway. Then there was this. In January 1964, after 4 years of deliberations, James Wallace Proprietary Limited published the redevelopment scheme for the Rocks, which had won them the government's long-running competition for ideas. In these boom years of the 1960s, historical consciousness was just beginning, and some applauded the Wallace scheme's attempt to preserve history, indicated in the following remarks.
It has been thought appropriate that the preservation of Cadman's Cottage and its use as a small memorial museum of early Australian history would be of value. It is proposed to dismantle the cottage and to re-erect it in a park formed at the lower end of York Street. This feature will form a subtle link with history without aggravating the problems of physical planning.
By mid-1960s, a generation of flower children and anti-Vietnam activists had claimed the streets for themselves. And the Wallace scheme, like so many others before it, faded away, at least for the while. Then, in 1967, promoted by a state government led by Conservative Premier Sir Robert Askin, still vigorously selling the message of modernisation, the plan was revamped, revitalised and resold to the public. The new scheme for the Rocks was estimated to take 15 years to build, and to administer this, the government created the Sydney Cove Redevelopment Authority.
You'll know that it's an area of old warehouses, factories, many of them in fact built in the century. There is a large number of old deserted building sites where buildings have been knocked down, old corrugated iron and rusting fences and weeds and so forth. And of course there are some historical buildings there too. But by and large, it's a rather depressing area and not really suitable as an entry to the city of Sydney.
For more information, visit therocks.com.